You're listening to Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Bryson Karbley. We're just two fans sharing our love for the game and Carolina Panthers football. So join us, crack open a cold one, some bubbly, a little wine, some scotch. We don't care, whatever makes you sleep better at night. Before we dive into the episode, a little self-promotion. Stop what you're doing. Go give us a follow on Twitter at Panthers on Tap. Join the discussion on our Facebook group. We have over 2,500 members. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcast. Just search Panthers on Tap. The Carolina Panthers were mauled by the Detroit Lions this past weekend. Panthers fall to 0-5 on the season. Bryson, we are at that point. It's brutal. It's a brutal time to be a Panthers fan right now.
Yeah, 0-5. I feel like we're the meme of the dude on the hot wing eating the hot wings is like, Paul Rudd, I think it is. It's like, who thought we'd be here? Not me. 0-5 and just, really one of the toughest times I can remember ever to be a Panthers fan. So, things are some positives and some negatives to take away that we'll get into from this game, but it's a tough time right now in Carolina.
Yeah, let's start with the O-line here. I wanted to pull up these grades from PFF this week because looking at it, again, with a grain of salt from them, it looks pretty good, actually, surprisingly. A lot more green, I guess a lot more yellow and green, more yellow than anything. But obviously less pressures, less sacks in this game. And then still an issue with this team is penalties, obviously, and we'll talk about that later on. But what did you think of this group, especially with, we all know about the injury to Chandler Zavala going down early in the game. I thought for the most part, Cade Mays played well filling in, and I know he's struggled in the past.
Yeah, this was a Lions offensive line that leads the league in pressures, and I thought the offensive line came in and played really well. I know Taylor Moton's pass blocking grade was pretty low, especially for him, but he was playing against Aiden Hutchinson the whole game, and I felt like did a pretty good job throughout dealing with him. He's got a 33.6 pass blocking grade, but versus him, that's probably really like a 50 or 60 overall when you factor in the talent level he was going against. So I thought he did well throughout the game, maintaining his blocks on Aiden Hutchinson. Then again, you got Calvin Throckmorton. I tweeted about him. I think he's been playing fantastic. His run blocking isn't great, but his pass blocking has been outstanding for a guy that you picked up off waivers. I think it was right before the season started, or maybe a couple weeks into the season. Throckmorton's done great. Bozeman's been all right. I don't know. I feel like he's been just an average center at best.
Yeah, I felt like this was his best game, but that's not saying much. He hasn't played really well, but I think overall it was one of his better ones.
And then, like you mentioned, Cade Mays came in and filled in well for Zavala. Hopefully Zavala bounces back and is okay. That was a very scary situation there. But and then Ekwonu, man, this was his best game.
All green.
This was his best game of the year. No penalties, right?
He had one.
One penalty.
He had one.
I don't think it was a false start, though, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what it was.
A false start, but
PFF had it. It was he might have been ineligible downfield. That's what it might have been.
Okay. But yeah, I thought, overall, this is a good performance. This is against one of the better defensive lines in the league that leads the league in pressures. This is a performance that you should be, happy with if you're the Carolina Panthers from a struggling offensive line this far into the season. My question for you is, do you know the difference between a hurry and a pressure? Because I do not.
I don't, and I don't understand. And honestly, when I was looking at Brian Burns' stats after Sunday, I was having a hard time because they have hurries as well. And then they also have pressures, but they don't break down pressures by game. PFF doesn't. And so it's really confusing. I don't get how they do it because they're two different things on their site. But yeah, no idea. I don't get how they differentiate between the two at all.
And that's why
you got to take them. You got to take them with a grain of salt. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it literally just sounds like the same thing. I don't know how you differentiate when you hurry the quarterback and then like when you pressure. Like I don't understand,
And
but
other
yeah,
sites just call it a hurry. And PFF, I believe, is the only one that does like indicates it as a pressure. So it's
yeah,
really confusing because I was literally looking at Brian Burns stuff, and he's got like 13 pressures. But then when you go into the games, his hurries aren't 13. So that's clearly not that category. So I don't get where that factors in or how they do that at all, to be totally honest with you. But I know it comes like you see it every game. They'll pull it up like in game broadcasts. Like, yeah, they have this. But anyway, I don't know how they do it. I don't get the breakdown of it either because it makes no sense to me whatsoever. But kind of getting back to the O line, I thought they played better. I think one thing to note is Aiden Hutchinson. He was out for, I don't know how long he was out during the game, but there was several drives, not several drives, but there was a couple plays here and there throughout drives where he wasn't in there because he did get hit. I want to say it was on the interception. So that I think helped the O-line out a lot. But yeah, I feel like this was a better day for them. Again, it still wasn't great. I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but I thought for the most part, Bryce Young had time in there at points in the game to make plays. Let's talk more offensively now, because obviously this game was brutal beyond belief. I mean, it was a blowout at halftime, and just everything just started to collapse thereafter. So let's talk about this first half, because Carolina, I mean, the story this week, I know you agree with me on this, is it's the turnovers. I mean, you can't go into a game and have 3 turnovers and expect to win. It's not going to happen. And if it does, you're playing a really, really bad team, worse than Carolina right now. So let's just talk about that. What did you see from the turnovers? And just your thoughts offensively in this game and their struggles.
yeah. I think Carolina had a lot of momentum when it was 14-7. The offense just went down and scored a touchdown, and then the defense came out. After Carolina scores, it's 14-7. The defense comes out, forces a turnover on downs, and then the offense comes back out with all the momentum, going forward, and then Miles Sanders fumbles the ball. Miles Sanders has been. I mean, from that point on, the game was over, essentially. I mean, the Carolina had lost all momentum. I mean, the chance to tie the game was over because they went down and scored off the fumble. So, I mean, it was literally a game killer right there. When you go back and you look at that fumble in that point in time, and it just really sucks. Miles Sanders hasn't been good. I mean, he's been bad. He's not even not been good. He's been bad. He's been detrimental to the offense. He's been detrimental to Bryce's growth. Been detrimental to the passing game. He's just been bad, and that shows in the stats. His average yard per carry, the eye test during the games. I mean, he's just not been good. And I think Chuba, again this week, had more carries than Miles Sanders, and Chuba just looks more explosive when he has the ball. He just looks more decisive, and I think it's time for this front office and coaching staff to admit that just because they're paying Miles Sanders significant amount of money for a running back, that they have to stick with him because he's been bad, really bad, and it's really, really hurting. But yeah, his fumble was detrimental. I mean, at that point, like I said, it really just changed everything in this game.
And wasn't that the second one he's lost this year? Didn't he lose one in Atlanta too?
Yeah,
I think he lost one in Atlanta.
And that was another super important one that he lost because I think Carolina was driving in, and then he fumbled the ball. But the 2 interceptions, the one to Aiden Hutchinson was, I like the way that like Frank put it. It's just like a freak play. I mean, it's maybe Bryce should have dirted it, but I mean, there's not a whole lot of defensive ends that are going to make that catch. That's maybe a 1 out of 10 times that Aiden Hutchinson himself even makes that catch. I mean, that was a freak play. I don't really put that on Bryce. I put that on play calling. Don't know why I know it's something that aggravates you, calling screens to Ian Thomas every fucking game.
Drives me nuts.
Like
Get
it's
rid of
something
that.
like that. I don't understand. They think Ian Thomas is this secret weapon that needs to be unleashed because they dial
I am
these screens.
shocked that is carried over from the rule area. Like it doesn't make any sense to me at all. And it's
Yeah.
not a sneaky play because every time they do try a screen to Thomas, it never works, or it's like a 1 yard gain. Like it's the dumbest play call ever. I hate it.
Yeah.
Get it out of there. And I don't even want to see it with Tremble. Just get the tight end screens out of there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that we have any tight ends that you should be running those two. But yeah, and then the other interception, I mean, that was on Bryce, but Frank said that the wide receiver didn't run the right depth from the route, so the corner was easily able to detect it and pick it off. So I mean, yeah, Bryce shouldn't have thrown it, but again, that's a wide receiver not doing the correct thing.
And also on that play, guess who's running the route under him? Ian Thomas. How the hell that guy's in a threat running a 5 yard out, and then you had Mingo running an out route as well over above him. So I mean, there's no threat to the tight end. The guy just sags back and Ian Thomas should not be running around. So I get it. You want to be sneaky and like you throw him out on a pass every once in a while. I understand. I get how offense works. You got to throw in wrinkles and stuff, but this guy there are too many plays he's involved with there that just don't work out. And I hate it. He should not be on this team. Anyway, That's just my 2 cents. But
I mean, they're running him out there like he's prime Greg Olsen. And I mean, like he's some serious threat to catch the ball, and he's not. He hasn't been at any point throughout his career. And, Trimble had 1 touchdown. He almost had another one he should have caught. That beautiful pass from Bryce where he was pressured from Aiden Hutchinson and threw it up, and it was literally the most perfect pass that a quarterback could throw, and Trimble drops it. But that could have been 2 touchdowns for Trimble on the day. Ian Thomas is the 3rd tight end on this team. I don't understand how he continues through these coaching staffs to make a impact to where they want to give him significant playing time. Even blocking, he's not been great, and that's what he's known for, is being a good blocking tight end, and he's not been great at that either. He's been average, but he's not like earning significant playing time because of his blocking. So I don't get it. I don't know if this guy has like dirt on every single person that has been head coach, or if he's just like Randy Moss in practice every week, and they're like, man, we just need to get this once on a game or whatever. But I mean, I haven't seen it at any point since Ian Thomas has been in Carolina.
Yeah, it's frustrating to me because I feel like they're rotating the tight ends more than they are the running backs. And I know Frank Reich likes that position and has used them heavily in the past. And I'm trying to remember because I did look up tight end stats a couple weeks ago because I was curious because the numbers of tight ends right now are so low, and he does like to use two, typically 1 or 2 guys. But I feel like Hurst has not gotten a lot of opportunities. I don't know if that's, it sounded like he went out at one point during the game. He called to come out. So I don't know if he was hurt or what happened or he's cramping up, but I do remember that at some point, but I'd like to see him more on the field. Cause I wonder if in that play, the one you talked about where the pick to Mingo, and honestly, I still blame Bryson. You can't make that. That's not an excuse. You can't make that throw. That was just a bad throw. But I want to know if the corner drops back like that and cheats on that play if Hayden Hurst is running that out route that Ian Thomas ran. But I want to go back to Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders quickly while you were talking about it. We've been saying this for a couple weeks, both of us. Chuba should be the guy right now. The turnovers have been costly. The run game hasn't been going, and when it has been successful, it's been at the hands of Chuba Hubbard, both running the ball and catching the ball out of the backfield. Miles Sanders obviously got paid this offseason, pretty handily if you're looking at the running back market. It sounds like he was more of a his offensive line really helped him in Philadelphia because he struggled when, and Carolina had been beat up on the offensive line, but he has struggled when it comes to that. So I think, you've seen over these last 2 weeks, Chuba getting more and more carries. And I think obviously this past week that got hindered with how the game played out, and they're down 28-10. you got to obviously throw the ball. You can't be running the ball. So I think this week, if they don't get behind the sticks, which I think they're gonna get their ass kicked. There's your little tease for later. But I think if they are not, and it is closer, you're gonna see Chuba Hubbard heavily ran in this upcoming game. So I do think that has already turned. You've seen it over the last 2 weeks. He's getting more carries than Miles Sanders. Is just the way the games have played out. But yeah, especially when you got a rookie quarterback, your running back who's a veteran, who had a really good season last year, has got to pick that shit up. You talked about, the other interception. I agree. That was just a pretty damn good play by Hutchinson. Just an unfortunate, just the way this offense has looked all year. I wanted to go back to this though in the first quarter because I remember mentioning to you this during the game, and I want to make sure I have this right. But the ball was on the 39-yard line. Carolina had 4th down. Okay. This was their first drive of the game. Carolina likes to receive, which I thought was interesting. They're probably trying to get something going. This offensive struggle. Let's try to, put some faith in this team offensively and go down and score right off the bat there in Detroit. But the ball's at the 39-yard line, 4th down. They elect to try to draw them offsides. They obviously get to delay a game. Detroit declines it. Panthers end up, get to delay a game again. They end up punting. The ball's at the 39. And from what I understand, you take wherever your ball is plus 17 yards from where the yardage is, and that's what a field goal is. So that would have put them at a 56-yard field goal. Didn't Eddie make a 56-yarder last week? Almost positive he did. It was a 55-yarder or 56. I think it was his career high.
Yeah.
I was shocked they did not try to kick that because if you're trying to go down and score points, and I know you're trying to flip the field for them or for your team defensively, but that 56-yarder, the way Eddie's been playing, I think I would have kicked that ball. I know it's a far field goal and it would have set up Detroit pretty handsomely, but Lions went down right after that, literally in 3 plays and scored just like that. Just so damn so I don't know. I went back to that play and I'm like, and I'm trying to make it. That's according to whatever all the shit I've online. You add 17 for wherever the ball is, and that's how far the field goal is. So if that is the case, I would have went for the kick.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, we both agreed that they should have kicked the field goal or actually went for it. Yeah. And he's being aggressive receiving the ball, but then he punts from the 39, and I think the punt only went to like the 18-yard line. When
it was a short punt.
Yeah, when Hecker punted it. So, and then like you say, Detroit drives in 3 plays and scores. So I think that was kind of an outlook to what the whole game was going to look like. Carolina acts like they're going to be aggressive. They receive the ball to start the game, drive down to the 39, have a chance to go 4th down. They try to draw them off sides. First of all, let me tell you, this coaching staff and this team is not outsmarting any other team in the NFL right now. Nobody's going to jump off sides because this offense doesn't scare anybody, and other coaching staffs are just better. So they have their guys prepared. No one's jumping off sides.
And that was 4th and 4. I was just wanting to go back to see where they were at.
Yeah, and
me in that case, I probably went for it. I'm just more conservative that way. But I would have definitely would have kicked that field goal. Obviously, Carolina didn't deserve to win that game anyway, the way the things played out. But just looking back at it, if you're going to go and receive the kick, you should probably try to come away with points on that drive if you're in that territory. I know they clearly banked on their defense playing better in that game. Obviously, they didn't, and we'll get into that. But that I thought was just a stupid sequence for me, at least. I'm trying to think. I'm just looking at my notes here. This was before half, and this is kind of talking about the defense a little bit. But that backyard bullshit play that they had to Laporte, everything happened in the first half. But that flea flicker play back to Goff, they ran Laporte down the sideline. Carolina didn't see it coming at all, and we got 28-7. But while we're staying on turnovers here. You have the fumble to Miles Sanders. Lions go down, and mind you, it was at the Carolina 38-yard line. Lions go down, score 21-7. The next play, Bryce Young throws the pick. So you had a turnover in back-to-back offensive plays, which is immediately like you're not winning that game. If Carolina would have won that game, it would have been the biggest debacle since the Falcons Super Bowl or the last year's game in the playoffs where Jacksonville came back. Like, you should not come back in that game whatsoever. But yeah, that's just been the story of this team. Is offensively they struggle, and you get turnovers, and then they beat themselves. And that was the next thing I wanted to talk about, was the penalties, which was, there was points in the game, and I don't think they had as many as they typically do, but Carolina, I haven't looked in like 2 weeks since we talked about it, where they were the most flagged team in the NFL. I'm sure they're still up there. But there was a drive in the second half that I noted. It was the second drive of the third quarter. Hurst gets a false start to start the drive. So they go back to 1st and 15. Then Young gets intentional grounding because, guys are up in his face. This was almost the near safety where he threw it at like the half-yard line. So that's 2nd and 25. And then Panthers don't get a first down there. You're already way behind the sticks, and they punt. Like, though, that type of shit can happen, and it all started with Hayden Hurst false start that just slowed that entire drive down. And then, Carolina obviously got pressured there and everything else, but it's just like Carolina too many times is beating themselves in these games. And they're obviously getting outbeat. Like, the other teams are playing really well, but they're making so many mental mistakes that for a team that has a rookie quarterback, a whole new regime coming in, and whole new philosophies offensively and defensively, they almost have to play damn near perfect in these games to be in them. You can't have these mental mistakes, delay of games, plays coming in late, offsides, false start. Like, that shit can't happen when you're playing, when you're this young of a team and you have a whole new regime. And that's what's going on right now. Like, if they play mistake-free football, they're probably in majority of these games. And they've been in some of these games late. This obviously this was the biggest one of a blowout. But a lot of these games, they've had a lead at some point. So for how much experience this coaching staff has, these guys need to be playing better. And I don't know if it's entirely just on the coaches. I think the players obviously need to execute too, because they're the ones out on the field. But like, this just seems to be, this was a problem last year too with penalties. So it's like, it's a Carolina thing. They need to figure it the fuck out.
Yeah, they just to inform you of the numbers, they do lead the league in penalties still. They have 41 penalties so far this season. Denver is second with 37. They have 14 false starts, which is by far the most. The closest is Chicago with 10. But yeah, Carolina is, hey, we're number one in something, right? So somebody's got to do it. So I guess we'll take the lead on that one.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, let's talk about TMJ here, because this one was a head scratcher. So he had a team high 9 catches last week in the loss to, God, I'm already forget. This season's so bad that I forget who the hell they lose to. Who the hell they play last week?
Vikings.
Thank you. Uh-huh. So team high 9 catches last week. And then this Sunday did not see the field at all. And then Frank Reich on Monday took the blame for it, accepted it, and, said, yeah, this, I thought we were going to try to get him in there. Never got him in there. I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. What do you think it's Frank Reich's fault? One. And what's going on? Because this is Adam Thielen, he had the Adam Thielen ghost play where Adam Thielen wasn't in the game. So like who's to blame on this one?
Yeah, I'm not sure who's to blame. TMJ did have a career high in catches this past week versus the Vikings, but he didn't do anything with any of those catches. So Mingo was back. I feel like Mingo, Shark, and Thielen were playing well, and they got Laviska in on some of the runs and stuff. They were probably just not scheming up things for TMJ and kind of relying on the better receivers that have shown, more consistency to this point. So I thought Mingo looked really good this game. I thought this was kind of his coming out party, but yeah, I mean, you'd like to see TMJ in there at least a couple times, get a jump ball or two maybe because he's very good at those. But Bryce just doesn't really throw a whole lot of those at this point in his career. So I just don't think that it was the right place or time for TMJ to get in. And maybe next week they try to force it a little bit more. But I think that the three receivers that played above him are better right now. So I kind of understand, but I'm not as mad as other people are that he didn't get in. I do like TMJ, and I've been a TMJ stan, but I think that, like I said, he's just not playing great right now, and the other guys above him are playing better. And I think they were just sticking with the hot hand in this game.
Yeah, I definitely think it was Frank falling on the sword. I don't think this was per se his fault.
Yeah.
Because, Frank has talked about in the past how Deuce Staley has the call of that rotation with running backs. I'm assuming that's probably what it is across the board for a lot of these coaches, where he kind of, deflects some of that power off to them, or gives out that power to them. And I feel like this was on Sean Jefferson, and Frank Reich was just being the head coach and saying, yeah, this is my bad type of thing. That's the way I looked at it. Some others will disagree and say this is, the second mishap by Frank Reich, with the Adam Thielen. He called a play for Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen wasn't out there, so they had to call a timeout type of thing or penalty or whatever it was a couple weeks ago. So I just think that's just Frank Reich, being, the head coach that should be, where you don't go out and blame, other guys, what we've seen in the past, whether it's your player or another coach. So I don't have a huge issue with it. I do think TMJ, just to mix things up, could have saw a couple plays in there, whether it was in goal line. I think he's always a threat if you give him a fade ball or something in the red zone. So I haven't seen a whole lot of that because Carolina has not gotten in the red zone. But obviously this week those things changed. Anything else offensively? I know it. What is your take this week on Bryce? Take away the turnovers. We've already talked about that. But I think obviously it was a different second half. They were getting their ass kicked, blown out. But
yeah,
I feel like he was starting to see things a little bit better in that second half. And obviously the offense put together a couple touchdowns. You can call it garbage time, whatever you want. But I felt like he looked a lot more comfortable towards the end once they went to a more up tempo.
Yeah, I thought Bryce showed growth again in this game. I mean, yeah, we talked about the two interceptions, the one that was fluky and then the one that was on him. But, he had three passing touchdowns this game. I think it was his most yardage up to this point in any game.
40-something, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that he's continuing to grow and learn what he can and can't do in this league. I like the way he put it, that, he's kind of running his own race, and, not all quarterbacks are the same when they come into the league. Yeah, we thought that Bryce was the most pro ready, and maybe he is in a different situation, but this one in Carolina, he wasn't. And he's continuing to grow. I thought that he made some really impressive plays on Sunday in Detroit. There were a couple plays that, the one to Trimble that we talked about, where he had Aiden Hutchinson in his face. He flicked it back corner of the end zone. Trimble should have caught it. Should have been a touchdown. He had one where he was looking left and threw it right to Adam Thielen.
That was nasty.
I mean, if he can, he's continuing to get more comfortable and grow in this offense. Frank Reich says that they're establishing an identity. I don't know what the fuck the identity is of this offense, because I have no idea what that even means. Because what does this offense do? I don't know. But I think that
throw it to Adam Thielen.
Yeah. Really, that's essentially it. But I think Bryce Young is continuing to learn his receivers. Like I mentioned earlier, Jonathan Mingo had a very good game, his best one of his career up to this point. I thought he looked really good when he got the ball. He had the most yards per average on separation out of any receiver in this game in Carolina. So, I mean, if he continues to do that, that's going to be huge for this offense. Adam Thielen looks great. I love what I'm seeing from Adam Thielen week after week. He's really outperforming what we thought he could do here in Carolina. He's one of the few that, keeps that attitude out in the field. It doesn't matter if they're down 20. He wants you to give it your all, and if he scores a touchdown, he's going to celebrate. Like, I love that attitude that he brings to this offense. I don't know what the identity is, but Bryce continues to grow week by week. We'd like to see him cut down on the interceptions, of course, but overall, when you look at the totality of things, Bryce really isn't, much worse than other rookie quarterbacks in NFL history, interception-wise, starting their career. He's actually a little bit better than what rookie quarterbacks typically do, interception-wise, up to this point in their career. So I think that we're mad. We're 0-5, and we expected different from this coaching staff, from this offense, from this defense. But I think that this season is solely going to be how much Bryce grows game to game, and if he continues to, mesh with this receiving core, and Jonathan Mingo continues to grow with Bryce, and I think that's what we're looking for game to game. And we might get a win or two here or there, but this season is solely the success will be based off of Bryce's growth and getting ready for year 2 and 3 of Bryce Young's career.
All right, let's go to the defense, because I thought up to this point they've been playing all right. They obviously had they gave up a lot of points in Seattle, 37 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one was obviously the other one. Doesn't help when your offense gives up 3 turnovers, but they struggled against the run like they have for the last 4 or 5 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. They even struggled in coverage as well. I thought, last week that secondary held their own. Obviously, Dante Jackson went out at some point, but I thought those corners played out, pretty well against Kirk Cousins, leading the league in passing yards, and obviously Justin Jefferson. And then this week, I feel like the wheels fell off and everything fucking fell off in this one for them. Just brutal. Did Brian Burns play up to your standards?
No, not hardly. What did he do? He got 1 sack when we were down 21.
Dude, he got a sack. He's got 4 on the year?
Oh yeah, $30 million a season worth right there, and it's 13 pressures. It's like,
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I thought he played all right.
No, he did not play all right. He got a sack in the third quarter when Carolina was down and out of the game. But when Carolina needed him, when they were still in the game, he was nowhere to be found. This is a continuing occurrence for Brian Burns. I like Brian Burns. I wish he would play up to that level. I mean,
what are you paying him then? What are you willing to pay him?
Well, we watched a guy last night, Monday night, Max Crosby, who every drive was disrupting the opposing offense. That guy makes $23.5 million a year. So I don't think Brian Burns is as good as Max Crosby. Max Crosby is just better. I mean, that's plain and simple. I don't know how anybody can watch Max Crosby.
Yeah, but that number is inflated, with the way it's now.
Well, yeah, I mean, he'll probably get restructured, and Max Crosby will probably make more, but because I think the contract was signed like a year and a half ago. But I don't know what I'm willing to pay Brian Burns. It's definitely not $30 million that I originally had said on this podcast, but a couple weeks ago, Brian Burns is a good edge rusher. He's not a top 5 edge rusher. He's top 10, I would say, but
10.
He's not top 5 stats wise. He's not top 10 this season so far, but I think that he will be by the end of the year. He is on pace, I guess, technically for 16 sacks, and I think it was like I can't remember the number on the pressures, but I mean, if he finishes the year with 16 sacks, I mean that's a good year.
That's a solid year.
Yeah,
that ain't a good. That's a solid ass year, dude. 16 sacks a lot.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's not, but you can't tell me through 5 games that you've been satisfied with his performance every game.
No, there are a couple of games. I thought he played all right this last game. I don't think it was
And
up the Seattle game. I thought he played really well in Seattle. I know you don't agree with that, but I do. I think that was
and
probably one of his best. Obviously, Atlanta was his best game, I think.
yeah,
Um,
Atlanta was his best game, but he's become a real liability in the run game too. A real liability. He
well, yeah, you can't miss. I mean, I pointed that play out. You can't miss that tackle late in the
Yeah,
game like
where
that.
they directly snapped it between Jared Goff's legs to David Montgomery, and then Brian Burns tries to tackle without his arms, and he just whiffs on David Montgomery. That was one of the most silly looking plays I've ever seen, and
Got to wrap
I, I,
up.
I don't know what he's doing, but I mean, and then he gets blocked by Josh Reynolds 1-on-1 wide receiver, blows him up. I mean, it's like he's so inconsistent. I mean, this is what he's been throughout his career is inconsistent. He, 3 games he's a no-show, then 1 game he goes for 3 sacks and disrupts every play.
How many sacks does Matt Crosby have? Do you know?
Max Crosby?
Yeah, Max Crosby. How many sacks has he got?
I'm not sure.
I don't think he's got much more than Brian Burns. I think it's 4 to 5, but I don't know. I don't have it off the top of my head. But
I'm looking it up. He's got 5 sacks.
and Brian Burns got 4. I mean, it's pretty damn close.
Yeah, but has
I know.
Brian Burns had a game like Max Crosby had last night that single-handedly won the Raiders that game?
I would like to know what his pressures were because if you look at his stats, his stats were actually comparable to how Brian Burns played in Seattle, which you didn't think was a great game.
Hell no, he did not have it. No.
Yeah.
No.
Statistically, besides the pressures, and I don't know. Again, they don't do breakdown of pressures, but Brian Burns had a sack, 3 tackles for loss, 3 tackles, and like 3 or 4 QB hits.
I'm trying
And
to find the stats right here.
Max Crosby last night had 1 sack, 5. He had 4 tackles for loss, 5 tackles, and I don't know what his QB hits were, but that's very similar numbers. But again, I think he had a lot more pressures last night, and I think that's where it tips the scales. But
and the difference I feel like with players like Max Crosby and Brian Burns is Max Crosby is consistently doing that throughout the game. Brian Burns is a lot of his stuff is coming at the end of the game when the game's over, when Carolina's down by 10 or 14, and it doesn't really. I mean, I guess it still matters in the grand scheme of things, but it's not when Carolina needs it the most. Max Crosby the whole night was disrupting everything for that offense that was the Packers that they were playing. Jordan Love couldn't breathe the whole night because Max Crosby was in the backfield. And I'm sure, I don't have the numbers, but that game, I'm sure Max Crosby had more pressures in that game than Brian Burns has had all season so far.
I wouldn't say that. Brian Burns had 13 pressures this year.
I mean, Max Crosby probably got at least 8 or 9 last night, pressures wise.
I think he had up there 6, 7, something like that. But no, I don't think he's as far off as you make it seem, but that's just me.
I just watched, games last night from Max Crosby, and I haven't seen a game like that from Brian Burns in a long time, of the consistent disruption that Max Crosby was causing when it mattered. I have not seen that from Brian Burns in a long time.
I would say Atlanta game. I would say Atlanta game because Atlanta even admitted after the game that they changed their entire offense because of Brian Burns.
Yeah, but then in the second half, he did nothing.
Well, yeah, because I mean I mean, hats off more to them than to the Panthers defense. They schemed it up better to take care of him, and obviously, he's got to find ways to get around that. But I would say that game because he made a couple plays in there where obviously had the fumble. 2 sacks, that was a pretty damn good game.
Yeah, I mean that was his best game. I'm not gonna say it wasn't, but I don't think it was as good as Max Crosby's game last night. But yeah, I think of course Carolina has to pay Brian Burns. Like they don't have a choice, right? But
they could franchise tag him, and I think that's where it's going to end up going.
Yeah, and they should have paid Brian Burns a year ago when they first started talking about this contract extension, but now they're going to be stuck paying him probably, unfortunately, more than he's worth at this point in his career, a year wise. I mean, he's probably going to get a contract of $28 million to $30 million range, I would guess. if they do agree to a contract, if Brian Burns will stay in Carolina, and that puts him the top top 5 in the market on edge defenders, and he's not playing like a top 5 edge defender right now. So you hope that he continues to grow and he does build that consistency, but I don't know, maybe he doesn't.
Well, and I saw this. I don't know who tweeted this out today, but I think this is how it's going to go. I don't think there's going to be a deal done. I think they're going to sign a non-exclusive franchise tag on him, which allows him to negotiate with other teams.
Mm-hmm.
He'll negotiate. If the player signs an offer from another team, the Panthers have the opportunity to match that offer. If they don't match the offer and they lose him, they will get 2 first-round picks for him. And that's how it will probably go. I think that's how Baltimore did it with Lamar Jackson. That's the exact same tag they put on him. That's what I think is going to happen. So they're going to offer him that, and then they can obviously, match whatever offer he is given. And that will allow him to see where his market is at, and also allow the Panthers to see where his market is at and go from there. And I think that's what they're going to do. And more than likely financially will probably, unless Panthers don't, pick him, or actually get him, it would suit the Panthers financially better that way. And obviously they did that with Lamar, and he didn't get his fully guaranteed like he wanted. Yeah. He still got a lot, but he didn't get exactly what he wanted. I think that's how that's going to play out as we go forward here. But I agree. I think they should have done it in the offseason if they weren't going to trade him last year, and they failed to do that. I don't know what the hang-up is on it. No one really knows. We've seen reports, but I don't know if anyone truly knows what those actual numbers are. So anything else besides Brian Burns? We talked about him a lot, but DB, I thought could have had a bigger impact.
What is
Derek Brown, I thought he could have had a bigger impact in that game.
Yeah. He's consistent at, as the D tackle on that defensive line, but you would like to see him make a couple more tackle for losses, maybe a sack. I don't know. He's been one of the most consistent players on this defense, so I don't want to really drag on him too much, but he's, you of course would like to see a little bit more, I guess.
And then Jameson, I thought he struggled.
Yeah, and Sam Franklin struggled big time. He gave up 2 touchdowns, I think, specifically. But
he was driving me nuts in that game.
Franklin struggled. There was one other. I thought that. Jeremy Chin. Yeah, Jeremy
your
Chin.
buddy Chin.
Yeah, he played 30% of the snaps. Not great, right? What are you doing? What's the plan with Jeremy Chin? You got all these injuries on defense, and he still can't find the field. So I don't understand.
I think he's going to get traded. I really do.
Yeah, it's looking like it. Whether that be for wide receiver or just draft capital, that's probably what's best, because if he's not finding the field when you have significant injuries on defense, then there's no point for him to be here. So I think that Jeremy Chin, he's too small to play linebacker, and he's not good at covering, down the field, corners and tight ends. So they're kind of stuck in between of what to do with him. It's crazy. His rookie year was, he went nuts. And then
he fit that defense. He's just don't have a spot for him. It's just, I still think he's a good player. I just think he needs to be in the right scheme. And I would be shocked if they honestly don't trade him before the deadline coming up in November.
Yeah.
Especially with how bad they're playing. They need to get some more assets, whether it is a wideout or another draft pick. Let's talk about David Tepper here, and then we'll go to a question we got from the gallery. But I wanted to ask you this because this has popped up, and I was honestly a little shocked about how honest Frank Reich was when I was watching that. I don't know if you watched it live or not, but when I was watching, I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe he's saying this right now. So, do the Panthers have a David Tepper problem, Bryson?
It's hard to determine that, I think, up to this point, because Carolina has not had a whole lot of success throughout their time as a franchise. I mean, they've been to the Super Bowl twice, haven't won one, but when Cam Newton was here, for the most part, David Tepper wasn't the owner. Cam Newton gets injured, you struggle for a couple seasons thereafter. Well, all seasons thereafter, continuing to this one. But I don't know. I don't know if it's David Tepper. I don't know if it's cursed. If Bank of America's cursed, it was built on a freaking I don't know, cemetery or something. But I don't know what's going on. You got owners like Jerry Richardson, who I guess David Tepper kind of falls in more line with. But if David Tepper was the one that wanted Bryce Young, so did everybody else. So I think that I agree. I still agree with the pick. I think Bryce Young was the best choice there, and I think he's going to be the best quarterback out of this draft class. But I don't know. I don't think I'm ready to say that David Tepper is the main problem, and if he sells the team, that Carolina's magically going to be fixed and we're going to solve all of our issues that we have in Carolina. I think that there's just a multitude of things going on right now, from the top down, with the GM, with the assistant GM, with scouting, everything, head coaching, coaching all around the team. I just think that we're struggling in a lot of areas, and it's kind of just compounding and just building up, and it's led to this 0-5 season. It's led to our struggles with Matt Rule. I guess David Tepper is responsible for the hire of Matt Rule and for the hire of Frank Reich, but Matt Rule, nobody thought Matt Rule was going to come in and be the dumpster fire that he was. He was one of the hottest names in that coaching carousel that time around. So, and then Frank Reich, of course, he was fired last year in Indy, but was still a popular name around the league for head coaching vacancies. And then he's got. I don't think David Tepper has been, as destructive as people like to make it seem up to this point. I think everything they did this offseason, I was happy with in the offseason. I was happy that they traded up to one. They tried to correct what's been wrong in Carolina. And I think that they did with the quarterback position, but we're struggling in other areas. This is a team and a franchise that went out and made moves to try to make it enjoyable for fans to watch football in Carolina, and it looks like we struck out in a lot of areas. But quarterback wise, I think that we found our franchise quarterback for the next 10-15 years, and it's just going to take time to build. Unfortunately, I would love for it to have started off great and just continued, but it looks like this is going to be a 2-3 year project to kind of get things right and build it from the foundation up around Bryce Young. So I'm not ready to say that David Tepper is the problem why Carolina is struggling.
Yeah, I think it's hard to pick. You can't pick and choose of what you liked, what he did. I mean, you either are going to say he's too involved or you're not. Like, you got to pick a side. So I agree with that in a sense. The only thing I don't like, I think he's too much like Jerry Jones in having a hand in everything. And what I mean by that is when he fires Matt Rule, and then he comes out in that presser and says Steve Wilkes has got to do a perfect job to even get consideration. And then after the season, he goes out once I think it was after, I don't know if it was after the draft, but whenever it was, and he came out and said, Carolina's moving up to get a quarterback. They don't have to have these elite wide receivers. Like, he shoots himself in the foot too much, trying to, speak out or whatever he's doing. And I think that he needs to just take a step back a little bit. I personally think, I just think there are too many things that he has said in the past that are coming back to haunt him now. And it's happened too many times at this point that you'd think he would realize that. But when you're where he is at and how successful he has become as a businessman, it's hard to not want to be at the forefront of all that. So it's a tough, I don't know what the right word for it. It's tough, to weigh that in his position. But again, I think it's too early to tell. I think there's a lot of things that have a lot of shit that's hit the fan this season that not a lot of people expected this early on. So it's tough to say. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I do know that he is clearly very heavily involved on a weekly basis, and in Frank Reich's words, engaged. And the conversations he has had with Reich are not fun, and they really shouldn't be. They're 0-5, and this coaching staff is over 100 years of experience in the NFL and looks like the most dysfunctional team with a new coach.
Yeah.
And this coach is in his second go around, so that shouldn't be the case. So yeah, there's a lot of blame to go around. I think there's a lot of blame for a lot of people. I don't know if it's all on David Tepper. I don't know up to this point if Steve Wilkes should have maybe gotten the shot. It's too hard to say right now. I think we got to let this thing play out. We're only 5 games in, not calling for no one's head at this point. And I just think let's let this season ride out. And I'm the same way with Bryce Young. You can't judge a guy off of 4 games. We've talked about this before. It's asinine to do that. It really is. I hate comparing him to this, but Peyton Manning, the guy had 29 interceptions his rookie year. And right now people would be calling him a bust if he was in that spot on Twitter and social media and the way things are nowadays. So let's just not comparing him, not saying, I think Bryce Young can get to that level. But I think people just need to step back, let this shit play out. You talked about it before. Thought it was a good point. Let's see the progress made. I think Bryce Young has made progress. It's not all great, but he has made progress in each game up to this point. And he has made flashes of throws that are like, holy shit, not everyone can make. So I think people just need to stand down a little bit. But I do think that press conference on Monday was very shocked that Frank Reich came out and said all that. And I'm curious to know if he had a conversation after the fact, like, you shouldn't have said any of that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing Frank Reich is he's not a liar. He's very truthful. I mean, he's gonna tell the truth if it's detrimental to him or not. So, but one thing about David Tepper is that I do want to say that I don't like is that if you're going to be so involved with the team and you're going to meet with them weekly, you need to make yourself available to the media. You need to talk to the fans as well, because you can't be extremely involved in the team and then not involved with the fans that go to the games and are the whole reason that the team is there. So
I don't want that.
Well, I think he should make himself available for questioning. I mean, if you're going to be directing the GM to make decisions or directing the coach to make decisions, then you should have to answer for that. I don't think that he should get a free pass to, be calling the shots behind the curtain and then not have to answer for the decisions that he's made. And I think that's the same thing with Scott Fitterer, who hasn't had a press conference this year, this season, after starting 0-5. I think Scott Fitterer should have to get on the podium like Frank Reich does and Bryce Young does after every game and talk and say, hey, Scott, what's going on? What did you see in these receivers? Why is it not working out? Like, what's going on with Hayden Hurst? Like, it's Miles Sanders. What the fuck, Scott? What's going on? Did you not see him, succeed because of that Eagles offensive line? Did you watch any tape? Like, I don't know. I think Scott should have to answer. I think David Tepper should have to answer as well for the decisions that they made.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm worried about. Like, I just feel like Tepper shoots himself in the foot when he talks. So I don't think he should be in front of a camera maybe once in a year. Like, we see what Jerry Jones does. He looks like a fool out there when he's talking. Like, oh yeah, I think Dak's still the Super Bowl caliber quarterback, and CeeDee Lamb shouldn't be complaining about and that happened today. Like, I just think Jerry Jones is way too involved, and just let the football people handle it. And I don't have a problem with things David Tepper does. Like, he clearly wants a winner. That's clear. Like, he wants the Carolinas to have a Super Bowl. Like, he is driven by that, and he is clearly fucked up to this point. Like, this team is terrible. I mean, they're not good right now, and they haven't been good since he's taken over. But he has made efforts to try to fix that. I just don't know if they're the right ones, obviously.
I mean,
but we don't know. Like, we don't know. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's too early to let's shove, if people think shoving Frank Reich out right now is that's not the right move. Like this, we need to let this shit, like, let this stuff develop. It's going to take time. Like and I know people want instant results because it's been hell these last couple of years, but people just need to take a chill pill.
Yeah, I agree, but you're also like the most patient fan. I mean, you were still supporting Matt Rule in year 3, so
Yeah, that's understand. And I want. I mean, I at the beginning of the season, I wanted this team. I thought they'd go out and win 8 games, but you also have to be realistic about it and see.
Still a possibility.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
It's not a possibility. I mean, we can talk about that, but it's not happening. This team will be lucky to win 6 games.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So I don't know. I don't know where we're going with this, but anyway, it's just
just be patient. I mean, yeah, it sucks right now, 0-5, but things take time, and there's just a lot of new things in Carolina, and it's not been as successful as other teams with new head coaches and new quarterbacks. But strength of schedule wise, Carolina's had the hardest out of any of those guys. Carolina has had the slowest, I guess, transition of success from the new coaching staff with the new offensive program, new defensive program that they bring in. Carolina has struggled in areas that they thought were going to be really good, like the offensive line. They thought that the wide receiver is going to be a lot better. So a lot of this, it comes down to the players not playing up to the level that they thought that they were. I mean, obviously they thought Miles Sanders was going to be a top 5-10 running back. They paid him like it. He's fucking probably one of the worst starting running backs in the NFL right now. So it's just, there's a lot of things going against Carolina. And hopefully, with time that it gets better. But like we said, this season solely for me, the success is how does Bryce look at the end of the year? Is he throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and cleaning up his interceptions and just looking sharp and kind of getting us excited for year 2 of Bryce Young, and then hopefully, drafting a wide receiver in the 2nd round, bringing another receiver in free agency, shoring up the offensive line if they need to do that, fucking figuring out what to do with the corners and the D-line. I mean, there's just watch Bryce and just get excited about Bryce, because I think that he's going to continue to grow and continue to show flashes of why he was the first pick.
Yeah, and I do think they found the right guy. I think we both agree with that. It's just for all the reasons we literally talked about the last 10 minutes of like this, there is not a lot of things that have gone right for this team at this moment. And while I'm patient, I want wins too. Like we want this team to succeed. And I think, at least for me, my patience has shortened from the last regime of, I'm not going to jump down their throats yet, like a lot of people are, and already calling for Reich and all these other, sell the team and all this other shit. I'm trying to be a little bit more realistic about it, but I also am not going to give this long ass leash like in 3 years. No, like this shit needs to start getting fit. Like they need to figure out this shit and get it together, because there are other teams in worse off positions. The Cardinals, who no one thought was going to be jack shit this year, and they're competitive in games. So find a way to make it happen. So I think it's slowly going to get to that point, hopefully here soon. Otherwise, we might be talking about, staff changes, whether that's a position coach or a GM or whatever the case is, because Carolina's staring down 0-6 right now going in the bye, which is not where anyone thought this was going to be. Many people joked about it, that it could happen, but
yeah,
I don't think anyone realistically thought it would. So let's talk about this question. This one comes from the gallery, word for word here. How nervous are you? CJ Stroud comes to town in week 8 and balls out. And is that the Panthers Super Bowl this year? I'll let you think about it because you haven't seen this. I think Carolina and them is going to be, I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be close. I could see Carolina winning. I could see Carolina losing that week 8 game. Do I think it's the Panthers Super Bowl this year? I will say yes, with an added thing to that. I think the Houston game is a Super Bowl for the Panthers, and the Bears game, for how much bullshit has gone on between Panthers Twitter and Bears Twitter over literally since the trade, and how much shit they talked about Carolina. And a lot of it has come true because Carolina has sucked to this point. But most Panther fans don't like Bears fans right now. So I think those 2 games are like probably the highlight of this year for us is how does Bryce Young stack up against a really good friend and the second pick of the draft, CJ Stroud, and a guy who right now in the Twitterverse, people say Carolina should have took Stroud. And then obviously you have the Bears game. I think you could also put the Colts one in there with the revenge with Frank Reich, but I would say those two games are probably the biggest ones, at least for me, on the calendar of games I'm most excited for, and I want the Panthers to win.
Yeah, for me, I think that the only reason that I would be nervous for CJ Stroud to come to town week 8, and if he were to ball out and Bryce Young not, I guess, play at the same level, would be the idiots after the game that continue to say that CJ Stroud should have been the pick and that Bryce Young is a bust. That's the only thing that really would aggravate me or make me feel nervous about the game. I don't think that CJ Stroud's going to come in here and just completely outplay Bryce Young and that, the Texans win by multiple scores. I think it's going to be a close game. Like you said, I think it's going to be a good game. I think that ultimately Bryce Young is going to be better than CJ Stroud. I still stand on that. I think CJ Stroud has played great, obviously, up to this point. He has way better. Nico Collins or Tank Dell in Carolina is wide receiver 1. They're better than any wide receiver that the Panthers have, talent-wise, right now. So I think that CJ Stroud's just in a better situation. His offensive line's been playing out of their mind. The coaching has been great. He's in a great system. He's just in a great situation overall. And I think that if Bryce went there and CJ Stroud came here, we'd be talking about the same thing as to why did we take CJ Stroud over Bryce Young? Bryce Young's playing out of his mind in Houston, and CJ Stroud's look like shit in Carolina. I think that it's just the situation that it is in Carolina. And it's not fair to Bryce, but it is what it is at this point. Super Bowl wise, I'm leaning more towards the Bears game just because of everything that, the shit talking this whole off season and DJ Moore, seeing what he does versus Carolina. I don't really care too much about the Texans game other than, I hope Bryce plays better than CJ Stroud so people will shut up. But, other than that, I don't really care too much about it. So, yeah, I would lean probably more Chicago Bears game for the quote-unquote Super Bowl this year.
What's crazy is, and I knew about this earlier, but I forgot about it, is today is the 1-year anniversary. The Panthers fired Matt Rule, and we're talking about the 0-5 Panthers right now, which is just crazy. Like, did not expect that at all. So, let's talk about the game. What?
I said, good luck, Nebraska.
Let's talk about the game this weekend. Panthers at Dolphins. Blood and guts everywhere, I think, is going to happen in this one. What do you think of this matchup?
This is one of the worst matchups that we could have asked for. The only thing that I can think of that'd be worse would be the Chiefs or the Bills coming to town. And this is an offense that's humming, that's clicking on all cylinders, that Mike McDaniel looks like the best play caller in the league. There's so much going right for the Miami Dolphins and so much going wrong for the Carolina Panthers.
Got a couple guys injured.
Yeah, Devon A-Chain and I don't know who else, but still, you got Tyreek Hill, you got Jalen Waddle, you got Raheem Mostert. It's an offense that's scary. They put up 70 versus the Broncos. You don't really ever see an NFL team score 70 points in the NFL. I think that they can possibly do that. The Lions just put up 42, right? The Lions offense is very good, but it's not Dolphins level offense. And the Seahawks put up 37. I'm scared. I'm going to be shaking, probably sick to my stomach. I'm not going to be excited for this one. I hate to feel this way about my team. Maybe they go out there and shock the world. Maybe the defense plays good. Maybe Dante comes back and plays well. But, you would love to have your top 10 cornerback on the field for this one. We know how I feel about that. But really, really missed him this season up to this point. And it'd be nice to have him around. But Yeah, I'm thinking that this one's not going to be close. I think it's going to be. I mean, I think the Dolphins are favored by 13.5. I think is the number right now.
That's being
Yeah, take that.
lenient.
Take that. Take Miami. I don't think this one's going to be close at all.
Yeah, Dolphins gave up 520, or they had 524 yards on offense last week.
Versus who?
222 on the ground. The Giants, just brutal. Man, yeah, I don't think this is going to be close. Unfortunately, it's going to be a long game. I guess I'll go with prediction first. Woo! Let's see here. Let me pull up. Let me pull up what the Dolphins have been putting up this year.
Do you think we get 50 burgered?
They put up 70 against Denver. We all know about that game. 40. Oh, so the Bills beat them.
Yeah.
40-20. Then they bounce back against the Giants. I'm going to say 36. What did Panthers score this last week? 24. I'm going to go 36-20. So they win by 16.
Yeah, that seems realistic. I'm going to go 48, just 2 points shy of a 50 burger. Defense gets out of there happy. 48-21. I guess 17-point win. So, yeah, I think that it's not going to be a fun game to watch. But it would be very Carolina Panther-like in their history. They've done things like this in the past.
Don't even say it.
To come out and upset the Miami Dolphins, and then you go into the bye week on a high, and then you come out versus your Super Bowl like the gallery thinks versus the Texans in Week 8, and maybe you are feeling different about the season. I don't know, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's little to no chance that we win this game. I think there's little to no chance that it's even close. But it has happened in the past years. Carolina Panthers' existence, that they've upset teams where they didn't have any business upsetting. So,
well, I just want to let folks know that I will be on the Inside Leverage podcast tomorrow. It's a Dolphins podcast. I don't know why they have so many Panthers people in here for this game. I mean, it's just going to be a shit show trying to talk about how bad the Panthers are going to get their ass kicked in this one.
How many Panthers people do they have?
They got Cat Crave at 4:00, Sheena at 4:30, and then us at 8.
Okay.
So a full slate, just us literally just probably talking shit about how bad the Panthers are. But we will be on there tomorrow at 8 p.m. That's Inside Leverage. So tune in for that. I'll send out probably something on Twitter once they give me more information. But that is happening tomorrow. Again, going to be a long game this weekend on Sunday. Is that a 1 p.m. kickoff?
I think so.
It sure is. There's no way Carolina is at any other time slot. So I think that is all for us. We just appreciate everyone tuning in to the Panthers on Tap podcast. You can get our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Go give us a follow on Twitter at Panthers on Tap for all your analysis and breaking news. And as always,